Hmm. As he stared into those piercing eyes that pierced his soul, he didn't realize the piercingness of the eyes. The eyes. It almost made him want to hurl. It made him want to vomit. He wanted to cry a million tears. Oh. I think it's time for a book review. Hey, what's up, guys? So, I haven't done an updates video in a while, but there's a few things that I really wanted to talk about, and I just felt like maybe if I waited a couple of weeks, I could do this in one video. There's a few parts of the video that I really want to talk about. I want to give an update on the book I'm writing about Philippians. I want to talk about compassion and understanding. I'm going to talk about a book that I just finished reading, David Copperfield by Charles Dickens, and then I'm going to end talking about one of my biggest, favoriteest things in the world, and that is American Horror Story. So I'm really excited to get into this video, and I apologize if this video is a little bit long, but I think it's well worth it. So let's begin. Update on the book I'm writing on Philippians. I'm calling it Real Christian. Reason for that, you read through the book of Philippians, or the letter to the Philippians, rather, and throughout the entire text, Paul talks about what it looks like to be a real Christian. So, the book is on hiatus because I have been really busy with school, with papers. This term was crazy with papers. There was like literally a paper due every week. I had to do an apologetics paper, which took a lot of time, and to be honest, it's probably not one of my better papers. Yeah. So that's an update on the book. That was really brief. Next thing I want to talk about, I'm a little bit hesitant to talk about it, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm not going to tell you what topic I am debating with another person. I'm not going to tell you what that topic is, but it has to do partially with being a compassionate person and really putting yourself in another person's shoes when you disagree with them. And I think that we've really forgotten how to do that. When we disagree with someone, the first thing that comes to mind, I disagree. The first thing that never comes to mind is asking questions to the other person to get a better understanding. And if we're going to be talking to people that we disagree with, we need to be asking questions about what the other person believes and what the other person really thinks about a certain topic. So, and I'm guilty of it too. Everyone is guilty of it, but come on. Just stop saying I disagree and start asking questions. It's really not that hard. So that was really brief too. And then I want to talk about a book that I just finished reading. Can't remember when I did it, but I asked on Facebook how many people would be interested in my thoughts on books that I'm reading. And I'm going to start that out with it in this video, and I'm going to start incorporating it when I do updates. I'm going to talk a little bit about Charles Dickens and a book that he wrote way back in the 1800s called David Copperfield. Just to introduce that, Charles Dickens happens to be one of my favorite writers. Obviously, he's not coming out with anything new, but I really like his style of writing. I really like Victorian literature in general. Charles Dickens just happens to be one of my favorite writers from that time period, and I also really like Oscar Wilde. But anyways, David Copperfield. Charles Dickens actually said that this book is semi-biographical in nature. In David Copperfield, Dickens himself puts a lot of life experiences into David Copperfield, which is one of the reasons why I really wanted to read it. Because, like I said, I enjoy Charles Dickens. I remember we read The Cricket on the Hearth back in elementary school. I liked the story. We read Christmas Carol, and I really liked that a lot better than Cricket on the Hearth. The idea that Christmas past, present, and future came to Ebenezer Scrooge, I just thought it was so funny, and it was so well done, and yeah, as an elementary kid, you're like, it's just another thing that we're reading in school, and I like the story. It's so cool because of the ghosts. But anyways, the second introduction to Charles Dickens happened in freshman English, and we read A Tale of Two Cities in the way that it was read back in the 1800s. They didn't read A Tale of Two Cities like we do now with the book format. It was more of a magazine sort of thing. So they would read a few chapters one week, they would wait a few weeks for the next part of the story, and so on and so forth. And I actually have a copy of the magazine that Charles Dickens edited back in the 1800s. It's called Household Words. I should have taken it with me, but whatever, I guess. But yeah, I loved A Tale of Two Cities. Everyone knows the first few lines of the book. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times, yada yada yada. What I really like about Dickens and Victorian literature in general is the really fine attention to detail. Charles Dickens is known for long sentences, and you can easily get lost reading him. I don't have a problem with that, or not as much as some people do. But yeah, David Copperfield was, if I were to give it a rating, I would say 4 out of 5. Tale of Two Cities kind of is a 5 out of 5 for me. David Copperfield, 4 out of 5. I don't really have a real reason why I'm giving it a 4 out of 5. But it is a really good book. I would recommend reading it. So here are some of my thoughts from David Copperfield. So it's the life of David Copperfield. It starts when he's an infant, and the story is his progression, his maturity. A couple of things that really stuck out for me. Number one, obviously the writing style. Number two, another reason why I really liked David Copperfield is that it was borrowing from Dickens' life. I mean, like I said, this is autobiographical in nature. I really liked, because this is David Copperfield's story, is that there would be a character introduced early in the book, and then randomly the character would come back. And the way that Dickens does it, it's like it organically flows, like the way that our lives do. We meet someone from several years ago, and then we happen to meet them a few years later, and there's a reason why that things happen the way that they do. And Dickens, he does that. He looks at that whatever you want to call it, this life pattern, if you will, that people tend to come back if they're meant to be. Another reason why I really liked David Copperfield was because of the way he describes people and the way that he describes events. Like I said, Victorian writers tended to really focus on small details and paint it in a way that was really intentional and artful. And one part of the book that really struck me, and I didn't really get the meaning behind it until much later, was this character, Uriah Heep, I think was his name. And when he was introduced in David Copperfield, Charles Dickens, as a narrator, kept saying, he's a very humble person. Did I mention he's a really humble person? It was really amusing, the fact that he kept repeating the word humble to describe this character. And then later on, we find out that this guy is not the best person ever in the world. And he ends up doing some whatever, and it ends up blowing up. And so we realize that and again, this paints the perfection of Dickens, is because he's really intentional with the words that he uses, because he wants you to think one thing when something happens later on in the book, and you're like, well, you just called him really humble, Dickens. So yeah, that's why that's kind of like, in essence, what I think about David Copperfield. Finished that book about a week ago. The next book that I want to talk about, and I'm going to briefly talk about it in this video, is this right here. I mentioned that I was going to talk about one of my favorite TV shows. This book, American Horror Story and Philosophy, is like really, really good. I like reading Aristotle, Plato, all those guys. And this book looks at the different seasons. It's an anthology series, if you're familiar with the show. And it weaves into, like, these philosophical discussions. Like, I was reading... Oh, this was so good. They did a rating of Jessica Lange's characters in the chapter called "And the Most Despicable Jessica Lange Character Is." The author... These are, like, different essays written by different people. So, according to Rachel Robinson Green, the least despicable Jessica Lange character is Sister Jude. And the one that is most despicable happens to be Fiona Good. Out of all these... And basically the whole premise behind this chapter is the person's level of morality. Sister Jude from American Horror Story Asylum was a nun. So, you know, she had a pretty high moral character versus that of Fiona Good, who was really driven by youth and power. And this was in American Horror Story Coven. I'm just going to read. Coven Supreme Fiona Good gets my vote for Lange's most despicable character. Many philosophers believe that moral actions necessarily involve considerations about other people. There isn't universal agreement on this topic, but it is a commonly held position that an action performed purely out of self-interest is not truly a moral action. If moral actions are actions that show concern for others, rather than purely concern for the self, Fiona Good never behaves morally. And that is, like, so true. Episode after episode, she's like, I wonder who the next Supreme is going to be so I can slit her throat. And she does that. A spoiler alert, the first person that she kind of kills off, well, during the main time period of the season, was Madison. And then we find out that she killed Anna Marie Layton because Miss Layton knew that Fiona would be the next Supreme. Fiona's like, I want the power now, bitch. And so she slits Anna Layton's throat. So, I'm going to review that book later. I'm going to talk about my thoughts on it. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Make sure to give it a like. Subscribe to my channel. I'm going to try to be a little bit more consistent with videos. I'm so sorry. Next video, I am planning on doing a Hebrew word. Yeah, so, like I said, like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you want. And check out my Twitter, Facebook, SoundCloud. Those are the main places where I post. So, thanks for watching this video, and you are awesome!